You seem to look for a need, then look for tools that someone can develop, and that's then where you invest. And is that a secret sauce in your DNA? And where does this take Flourish as a venture firm?
Yeah, look, I think we're very maniacally focused on technology innovation that advances either directly or indirectly financial health and economic resilience. And so, against that backdrop, we absolutely look for innovations that we can see maybe their initial wedge solution is addressing a specific need that then kind of argue towards advancing financial health. But I would say that actually, in and of itself, if that were to succeed on its own as a platform, it probably isn't sufficient. And let me just expand that further. So it's not that they are just commercial return, large scale market leaders. Our goal as an investment fund and as a fund who looks for impactful outcomes is to see that have a longer term sector impact. And so let me give you an example of a sector that we've been looking at and we've started to see the tipping point against, and that's under challenger banks. So about 3.5 years ago, we saw this trend towards the unbundling of banking services. And it was very clear to us that if you could truly unbundle, as Arjun had mentioned, the banking services, you could actually provide a very rich suite of services for all the entire population up and down, irrespective of their income levels, and really to provide a no fee, low fee type of solution, and then ultimately add, incredible financial services that advance financial health over time. And we started that thesis off, and we looked early in the U.S. and Chime Bank was one of our many investments, and we actually now have 9 global challenger banks around the world. And as you can imagine, as many of us know, the sector has taken off. There's been a lot of incredible innovation, many great successes. But if you look at Chime for a moment, right, they are one of the preeminent leaders. They have over 8 million users, just incredible retention rate, incredibly high savings rates, which again kind of go to the advancement of financial health, unit economics profitable, and its most recent valuation of over 14.5 billion. I think they've clearly grown and really shown a market dominance. But the reality is many companies have come out of this. Many companies globally, including our broader portfolio, have all really benefited from that innovation and that growth. And I think as importantly, you're actually seeing financial services and incumbents respond. You're seeing them recognize there's a need. And these folks, they serve billions of consumers worldwide. So they recognize the need to say, well, we need to really think about our own digital services. We need to rethink about our fee structures. How can we do it differently? And so you're starting to see a tipping point. And it will take some time for sure. But it's that evolution, it's that portfolio that then provides a broader shift that's really powerful. And that's how we view our investment strategy. And then I would say we augment with really important work, including the research work we do today, like the gig worker work. It's a very good example of thought leadership. How do we raise issues more broadly? How do we identify opportunities and risks? And then on the other side, we actually invest very heavily on the ecosystem. We recognize that in a regulated industry, you really need to kind of partner closely align with policymakers and regulators, and that's another very important part of our process.
Well, let's go to that policy work. Tillman,
John, if
how
I
do you
could
move
just,
toward?
yeah,
Please
sorry,
go ahead.
I can jump in quickly. Em talked about the focus on sort of technology solutions. I want to give you the other side of it, which is an equally maniacal focus on the consumer, right? What are their daily lives like? What are their challenges? What are their needs? What are their demands, right? Because if you can put together the technology solution with the actual demand and you tailor it to the needs of the customer, that's where I think the magic happens. And this digital hustle research is an example of that. I think if you would take me back a year ago, I would have loved to be in the field in Brazil or Indonesia or India, actually talking to these workers, right? I don't think I've ever been in an Uber car in any market in the world without asking them what phone they use, what bank they use, and how they use it. In this new COVID-driven world, this digital hustle research really helped us keep close to the ground, keep close to the voice of the customer, so that we can start to sort of be that bridge between entrepreneurial, technology-driven solutions and really where the pain points are.
And I want
Sorry,
basic.
I cut you off
Yep.
for a question, I think.
That sounded as if, John, you wanted to ask about the regulatory work, and I'm happy to talk to that in a second. But let me add 2 comments on what Arjuna and M both said. One is, you framed this notion of we put need first, less opportunity. And we actually don't think that there's a contradiction or a tension between those 2 things, right? So if you identify a deep customer, consumer, small business need, and if you can serve that in better, cheaper, more adequate ways than has been done traditionally, you have a big opportunity. So no trade-off between being focused maniacally, as Arjun and M said, on the end user and making them better off and having a big commercial opportunity. That's the first comment. And then the second comment is our focus on technology-led innovation that's a means to an end. What technology allows us to do today as a broader community, it allows to do things that were previously simply not feasible, right? So M spoke about a bank that is essentially just an app, and it uses the rest of the infrastructure. It doesn't have a branch. It doesn't have legacy IT systems. And when you do that, you can provide a much better service so much more cheaply that it is a win-win proposition for everybody. And the same is true on the credit or insurance side. And COVID actually, and the lockdown and these structural changes in the economy that we talked about earlier have accelerated all these type of trends. So we are in this almost ironic situation that at least makes me at times feel somewhat guilty and humble. But our portfolio, which was betting already on tech, remote, online only, no physical infrastructure, our portfolio is doing really, really well, because things that we thought would take 5 or 10 years to happen from a changing in behavior perspective have massively accelerated in the span of just a few months.